Hey there, it's another beautiful day, so grab yourself a cup and let's watch some stuff.
What's a conspiracy theory that absolutely blows your mind?
Not exactly sure if this is a conspiracy theory, but I read this about 6 months ago. What if when we die, the light at the end of the tunnel is a light to another hospital room? There we are born, and the only reason you come out crying is because you remember everything from your past life, and you're crying at the fact that you died and lost everything. As you grow and start to forget your past life, and you focus on the life you have now, but patches of memory stay behind, and that memory causes deja vu.
That's an interesting theory. It kind of goes along the lines of reincarnation and it puts in that whole, when people are passing away, they say that they see the light at the end of the tunnel. It kind of puts that in there. And that's kind of cool. Do you believe in that? Do you think that's plausible? Hey, thank you so much for hanging out with me today. If there's a topic you'd like me to cover, please let me know in the comments down below and I'll do my best to get it in an upcoming video. If you're having a good time, please consider giving me a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, and come back tomorrow because I'm making a new video every day.
You need to hear this crazy conspiracy about iPhones. Have you ever thought about why an iPhone has its name? Some people think when Apple says I, it literally means I. iPhones are watching us, listening to us, and seeing everything we're doing. And some people have this link to the Illuminati. Don't believe me? What's Siri spelled backwards?
There's also a saying that the apple with a bite taken out of it is mocking the Adam and Eve story, how Eve took a bite out of the apple after she was enticed by the devil.
Here's a conspiracy theory for you that became conspiracy fact. In the 1920s, Edward Bernays and Paul Mazur set out on an experiment to turn Americans into mindless, insatiable consumers. I do not like where this one is going. They had an idea to train Americans to desire to ever consume more and more goods and services with no real reasoning behind the desire to purchase new things. The idea was that this would result in turning every single American into profit-consuming, but also product-producing zombies, slaves to the system, if you will, and that this would eventually empower the ruling elite. We must shift America from a needs to a desire culture, said Paul Mazur. People must be trained to desire, to want new things, even before the old have been entirely consumed. We must shape a new mentality, and man's desires must overshadow his needs. That's a direct quote from one of the craziest people I've ever read about. Because if you just look around the United States, it's pretty clear that that plan completely worked. And if you found that story crazy, check out what we've got over on Rockfin.
I wonder how they put that into play. Like, it is obviously apparent. We have things that we don't necessarily need. Everyone's constantly keeping up with the Joneses. Maybe that's where it started, was the old saying, keeping up with the Joneses, or the grass is greener on the other side. I don't know. And you just want to have more, and you need to have more. I mean, you don't actually need it other than like a desire, not an actual physical need for more. I'd like to see patient zero in this experiment that has totally succeeded in every way.
Thousands and thousands of clay tablets. It's not something that you find in one or two clay tablets, as some people still might think. The Anuna gods are the central figures, the central characters in pretty much most of the Sumerian writing and most of the Sumerian clay tablets. There's always a reference to the Anuna and the Anunnaki and how they controlled humanity and obviously how they created humanity. And it's all connected to ancient gold mining. And the generation of energy, gold mining, and the obsession with gold that the Anunnaki had, that we seem to have inherited, this obsession with gold. And that's a very important connection to be made, that humanity's obsession, why do we use gold as human beings? It has very little purpose to us other than in technology, but that only came very recently. But in ancient times, it was just like this very valuable piece of shiny metal that very few people had access to, and the kings and the lords always hogged it and took it from everybody. and it always belonged to the gods. Whenever you go back in ancient times and the Europeans arrived while they were colonizing the world in the late 1400s and early 1500s, wherever the Europeans arrived and they found ancient civilizations and local tribes with huge amounts of gold, pretty much all over the world, the ancient tribes had gold when the Europeans arrived there. This is a spectacular thing. And when they asked them, who does the gold belong to? The answer was always, the gold belongs to the gods. And that was a feeble excuse, strangely enough, that the Spaniards used. Well, if the gold isn't yours, we're just going to take it. And they did.
And of course, the Spanish had gone looking for it.
Don't you find it interesting how this gold has so much value when it's just a metal? There's a lot of it. It's abundant, but we still give it so much value. But why? Maybe it's because we've been programmed to.
Check this video out with me and stick around to the end. Have you ever asked the question, if it took apes 7 million years to evolve into humans, we should have found millions of ancient human remains up until this point, but we have yet to find any of them, only since the last 10,000 years. Let's go ahead and play it.
Population size over time, going all the way back to, they believe way before the Bible says the world was created. But essentially, there's about 1 million people alive across the world for tens of thousands of years. And all of a sudden, somebody invents farming. And that means that extra population can be handled because there's more food. And all of a sudden, the population does that, and we have 7 billion people today. And how come the people with the same genes back here, who were just as smart as people here, they didn't think of planting something in the ground and harvesting it the next year? This is really magic back here.
Right.
Taking that thought, I applied that to a biblical idea where this is the flood, this is today. And starting from those 6 people, all you have to do is double the number of people every 156 years. And you arrive at 7 billion people after 4,500 years. Just about any model that has any growth at all, you can get this many people in those many years. So the human population size actually is a biblical human population size. If evolution was true and we existed for so many thousands of years before that, there should be trillions of people. Not that it's possible.
Yeah.
Or someone should have invented farming earlier than that. Or another way to ask it is this. If 1 million people live for about 1 million years, where are the trillions of bodies?
That's a really good question.
They don't exist.
There's no bones down there.
Yeah, there are some ancient bones we found, great, but those are post-flood people.
Right.
There should be millions upon millions upon millions of cemeteries, old villages, and remains of people, and we don't find them. I believe it's because they didn't exist.
That is fantastic speculation. And that goes along with the divine creation theory. And the math works out. And there is a question of where are all these bones, right? So there's that. There's also the possibility that every 12,000 years the poles shift and everything gets washed out, and that's why we have so much fossil fuels. It's just another theory to go along with it.
It's really weird how, like, for instance, the earth has almost the exact same amount of water as we do in our body, and how our blood is composed of iron. It's the same core that the earth spins. We're like perfectly designed for this earth is the best way to describe it.
Yes.
Like perfect here, but not in a way where we're supposed to be hunter-gathering or living primitively. All of a sudden, the hair mostly lost off our body. All of the traits that would be necessary for us to survive in the way we've been told just all of a sudden vanished. And someone would be like, well, evolutionarily, they don't need them anymore. But no, this happened like out of nowhere. It's not like it's a slow thing. And we've also never observed any kind of a primate in any stage of a change over the course of human history ever.
Never.
Not even one slight change where it was like converting into something else. And I'm not someone who's completely against all aspects of evolution.
Sure.
I want to make that clear. What I realize is that evolution may be more based on the macro versus the micro. So like for instance, I think that an animal, yes, can develop more hair, change things like, yeah, those things absolutely happen. But for something to be able to, for instance, go from a giraffe or like a whale to us, I don't understand how that'd be possible. And I want to give an example of that. I talk about how in Australia, there's a creature there that I believe proves that evolution isn't exactly what we've been told. Not
What's the creature?
the platypus. Are you familiar with the platypus?
Yes, I am familiar with the platypus.
Platypus is the weirdest goddamn animal on earth. It's a mammal that lays eggs that's poisonous. That is supposed to be like a half bird, half duck. It doesn't make sense.
I guess I'm not 100% grasping onto what he's saying. I know that there's missing links in between our evolution from primates to Homo erectus, and that's why the Anunnaki story just fits in there so nicely. But I don't understand how a platypus fits in there. I don't know. I know there's like one day we had hair and then the next day we don't, and why. But how he's trying to fit the platypus in there, I guess I just don't get it.
To offer an amendment to the NDAA to task the Pentagon IG to probe whether ticks were ever weaponized with Lyme disease or any other dangerous pathogen. Our legislation passed the House but died in the Senate. Was told that the IG did not have sufficient capacity or bandwidth to investigate. So tonight, the new Smith-Peterson amendment instead tasks the GAO with that job. For years, Mr. Speaker, books and articles have been written credibly asserting that significant research at Fort Detrick and Plum Island and elsewhere was conducted to turn ticks into bioweapons. In her book, Bitten, The Secret History of Lyme Disease and Biological Weapons, Chris Newby includes interviews with Dr. Willie Bergdorfer, the researcher who is credited with discovering Lyme disease. Turns out that Dr. Bergdorfer was a bioweapons specialist. The interviews, combined with access to Dr. Bergdorfer's files, reveals that he and other bioweapons specialists stuffed ticks with pathogens in a quest to cause disability, disease, and death. Mr. Speaker, with Lyme disease and other tick-borne diseases exploding in the United States, an estimated 300,000 to 427,000 cases, new cases each year, and 10 to 20% of those people with chronic Lyme, Americans have a right to know whether or not any of this is true.
On Plum Island, out off the coast of New York, there is a research facility. There was a research facility, and they researched animal viruses and diseases. And it's believed that in 1975, these ticks were released in the city of Lyme, or Old Lyme City in Connecticut. And that's where Lyme disease originated, right? So now it's just running crazy, and nobody's fessing up to what happened and how it got here and why. That research facility is now in Kansas. What a wonderful place for it, right? Check these videos out.
Scientists will also study pathogens not even allowed at Plum Island. They're called...
Did y'all know that they put a biolab in Kansas? And they completed construction just days before all those cattle died mysteriously? According to someone who lives around that area, they said that the day that they announced construction was completed, way prior to that, they already had 200 plus people working there. Make sure you watch the video that I stitched. It is so obvious what's going on. Stay safe, y'all.
I'm pretty sure this is the video she's talking about.
Wake up, people.
10,000 cows died in Kansas. How does this just happen? But no one knows why I call bullshit.
So this island may not look familiar to you. It's a barrier island. It's called Plum Island. They have a research facility on here that is closed to the public because it's very contagious. It conducts research on animal pathogens. Okay? Pause to read. They decided to move Plum Island. Where? About 2 hours and 34 minutes from the exact location where the 10,000 cows died. Now my question is, why would they decide to do this?
So my timelines are a little messed up. I thought that Plum Island was closed more recently and that this facility was opened more recently. I had no idea about all of these cows passing away, and I certainly didn't have any clue about them doing that in the same time that the new facility was up and running. Um, that is a strange coincidence. I know that there were several occasions on Plum Island where they did have to disinfect the island because foot and mouth disease got out and it got into the bovine, and they had to take them all down. But it, who's to say it's not going to happen again? And how quickly is it going to spread? And right now we got this bird flu that's crossing over into cows, and now it's crossing over into people. What's going on? It's a terrible place to put a research facility. Just like the CDC, it has no place being right in the center of the country. It's stupid. It's irresponsible. That's going to be the end of it for me today. Thank you so much for hanging out. I really do appreciate your time. I have been having a wonderful time making these videos and learning a whole bunch of stuff. And I hope that you've been having a good time as well. And I hope to see you tomorrow. Have a wonderful day.